Thank you to the speaker before me. I'm going to share my... Miss Allison, I'm not hearing you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation. My presentation today is titled, What Multiple Sclerosis Took and Stem Cells Gave Back. So I'm not a doctor, but I was a recipient of stem cell treatment 10 years ago. So just adjusting. Okay, it is my great privilege today to be able to speak at this conference. My name is Kema Partap, but as most people find it difficult to pronounce, I chose to create my pen name as Kav Partap Karamtasingh. Simple to remember, but still carrying some substance. I wanted to speak to you today because I was given an amazing opportunity 10 years ago that I know I am still benefiting from today. My results were so amazing that now that it has been tried and tested, I have made it my life's goal to share my experience. I would never forget the day I sat in a wheelchair in the hospital and the doctor said to my parents that I had multiple sclerosis. He did not even speak directly to me. I just made a part of the background of the conversation. Neither I nor my parents had any idea what MS was, multiple sclerosis. You see, I live in a small island in the Caribbean known as Trinidad and Tobago. We are a country known for its carnival festivities and having a culture of lyman, which is basically hanging out. So no one cared much about learning about illnesses or prevention, especially at that time. After the diagnosis was given to my parents, we were told to research multiple sclerosis on the internet. In 2003, the internet was still a luxury in most homes and ours was no different. Now, I would like to describe to you my first 10 years of living with multiple sclerosis. Extreme fatigue and pins and needles on my left side. I was diagnosed with MS after a MRI scan and treated with high doses of steroids. The doctors wanted to admit me to the hospital to run further tests, but my logic was at the time, how could that help me recover? I was advised to not try any alternative treatments. I refused to be admitted to the hospital and I was treated privately with steroids. My recovery this time took a total of about 6 months. I did not listen to the doctors and began vitamin therapy under the care of a general practitioner. I did, however, listen and do research online. There was a whole wide world out there that knew so much more about MS, and I continued learning. When out of nowhere my right side would stop working. I would limp to walk and use the walls as support. I had canes of different colors, but my pride would not let me use them. I mastered the art of stumbling without actually falling. My bladder would constantly stop working as well, and I suffered a series of infections. I would take antibiotics after antibiotics, and pretty soon the antibiotics would stop working. I would just be prescribed another brand or another type. My treatment options were running out. I had long since stopped using the steroids because of the many serious side effects associated with it. How could I be trying to recover from one ailment but be harming my body in another way at the same time? It seemed counterproductive as I started just relying on vitamins to get me over a relapse. I had come across the drug beta interferon. I remember that it was not advised to be used while pregnant or trying to conceive. Having a baby was something I knew I always wanted. It wasn't anywhere in my near future, but I was not about to start making decisions to prevent it from happening. I told him I was not interested. Many times over the years, when I would get sick, I would wonder if I made the right choice. My life continued as best as it could, and I eventually got married. When I met my husband, I explained everything about my condition and told him if he wanted to run, that he should do it sooner rather than later. He did not run and decided that he wanted to be with me for better or worse. We courted for about 3 years and tied the knot. I was looking forward to having this new life, but I forgot for a little bit that my MS was a major factor, and it didn't disappear just because I made a major life decision. About 6 months after getting married, a major relapse hit and knocked me down almost as bad as the paralysis. To hold on to faith or to convince my husband that things would be okay. I was in one of the darkest places after my diagnosis, 10 years prior. Another young woman that I had met soon after my diagnosis had already passed away from complications brought on by MS. So who was I to believe that I could survive this dreadful disease and actually live a happy life? My mind was broken, as bad as my body, and I had no options to turn to. My small savings were still recovering from my wedding almost 4 months before. Somewhere in the corner of my fragile mind, I thought that this cannot be it. I had to find an answer to my cruel punishment. I took to the internet one night, still barely able to see clearly, but it was enough to look for answers. I began researching as I had in my early days. In the year 2012, stem cells were still very much controversial, as I think it still is today. It was being performed for different ailments with promising results, but the research was not very widely available. It was not approved by the FDA, and I think it still isn't, and it was considered an expensive experimental treatment. I was intrigued though, as it was possibly the only thing available to treat my condition without a serious set of side effects that would be detrimental to my body. Further research took me to a website that spoke about a Dr. Albert Metrani. On the site, I found an email address and a US phone number. I was intrigued. I looked further and saw that a clinic was being opened soon in Little Trinidad and Tobago. That's the country I'm from. I cannot tell you what propelled me in the direction that my life took after I found this research, so I will say that it was divine intervention. I emailed the address and got a response from Dr. Metrani inviting me to the clinic on his next visit to the country. I thought, why not? I had nothing to lose, and maybe everything to gain. My husband and I went to the meeting and were shown research about how stem cell treatments were benefiting MS patients. I was told that this would be beneficial to me, and I was told the cost. My heart dropped because I absolutely could not afford it. I was then given options and a payment plan, and I left to think about it. I cried over it, prayed over it, and decided it was either take the chance or continue to wither away. I did the mesenchymal stem cell treatment in an outpatient procedure and then was treated with intravenous vitamin C over a period of 3 months. It was then that I began noticing changes. Over time, my energy levels soared. My physical abilities were enhanced, and for the first time in my life, I was unstoppable. I began making dream after dream come true. I had my daughter in 2014. and my son 3 years after in 2017. I worked long hours and helped my husband to construct our humble home using just our savings and small loans. I was a working mom who was able to look after her little family. I was working at the time as a secondary school teacher, but only doing part-time hours. After some time though, it was evident to me that the stem cells were not a cure for my multiple sclerosis, but it did reboot my system. I never suffered a major relapse since the procedure almost 10 years ago. My paralysis never returned and my vision is still 15-15. My biggest issue with my illness presented though after the pandemic hit in 2020. I eventually narrowed down what was happening to me as being caused by the high stress levels. After this realization, I started making meaningful changes to support my health and keep my stress levels controlled in a world that was spinning out of control. I left my job and began working as an entrepreneur. I started working from home, teaching online, and homeschooling my 2 children. I worked on fulfilling another long-held goal of writing a book, and in November this year, I completed and self-published my own book. Conquering 20 is my book that is published on Amazon. In April 2022, it will mark 10 years since my procedure and 20 years living with multiple sclerosis in total. My book looks at my life from a young girl growing up, being diagnosed with MS, and overcoming all the many obstacles that stood in my way. The purpose is to be inspirational, and I hope that it can help others look beyond pharmaceuticals to find treatments that will support their general well-being. My goal going forward is to promote a healthy lifestyle and help others realize that there is always hope no matter the situation. I believe that I was put here for a real purpose, and I am finally on my way to fulfilling it. I've also created a blog, Carved Life, where I post regularly and keep track of my life and to ensure that I am following the path that I am supposed to. It is the first multiple sclerosis blog in the Caribbean, and I have been able to connect to many persons, not just with MS, but other autoimmune conditions. I hope that I can bring about a change to our culture where illnesses are seen as making us weak or something to be ashamed of. I hope I can change that for the future so that other persons can be able to freely speak about their illnesses and thus find some measure of relief. Now I invite questions and comments from the listening audience. I will also put my information for my blog and my book up on the screen, and I will share it in the chats. Any questions from anyone? Okay.
Your presentation, questions for that?
You're welcome. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Questions to Dr. Lana, a competition box. Thank you so much, Doctor, for participating in this webinar.
You're welcome. I'm I'm seeing a question, how much the stem cells will be effective? Well, I went from having paralysis issues to never suffering from paralysis issues again. So I would say the stem cells were very effective. I have not had a period in the past 10 years where I wasn't able to walk or use my right hand.
Okay, Dr. Thank you for participating in the question section.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.